morning, Hong Kong picked up the pieces today after a lashing from Typhoon Nida, but emerged relatively unscathed. Packing winds of more than 150 kilometres an hour, Nida felled trees, toppled scaffolding and injured at least a dozen people. Rachel Leung begins our coverage.
Hong Kong recovers from the first number 8 warning signal of the year, which was issued at 8:40 last night. Despite the gale-force winds and heavy rain that lashed down overnight, the city escaped relatively unscathed. At 12:40 p.m. today, the observatory replaced the number 8 southwest gale or storm signal with the strong wind signal number 3. The city gradually emerged from lockdown this afternoon, with deserted streets bringing back to life as bus and train services resumed. People rushed back to work after the typhoon signal was lowered, with many opting for the bus, like these commuters at the Hong Kong Cross Harbour Tunnel bus stop. Kowloon Motor Bus and Long Wind Bus gradually resumed services on some bus routes at 11:30 a.m. Long lines also emerged at Apley Chow Bus Terminal as commuters tried to get to work, with some saying they had to wait at least 20 minutes for a bus. Like the buses, most ferry services were suspended during the storm. Hong Kong and Kowloon Ferry resumed operating its 8 service routes from 1:45 p.m. Nida came within 50 kilometers of Hong Kong between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., whipping the city with gusts of more than 150 kilometers an hour at Ngong Ping on Lantau Island. The storm felled at least 100 trees and caused scaffolding to collapse. The hospital authority reported that at least a dozen people, 11 men and 1 woman aged between 34 and 91, had sought medical treatment at public hospitals during the typhoon. The Education Bureau announced day schools would stay closed today, but evening schools would reopen for classes. Rachel Leung, TVB News.
Nida caused sea levels to rise 0.5 meters above normal over parts of the territory, leading to flooding in some low-lying areas. The observatory warned today that more flooding is expected. Caleb Long has more.
Tayo this morning, battered by strong winds and rain, while villagers did what they could to protect themselves from the storm. The river banks were almost submerged. Tayo is no stranger to flooding. During Typhoon Hagupit in 2008, the fishing village in the western part of Lantau Island was swamped by floodwaters up to 3 meters high. Authorities took no chances this time around. Civil aid service personnel were out there patrolling the village lanes, ready to offer help to residents. The government had built flood barriers along the river following the 2008 inundation. A local resident said the barriers did help prevent the lanes from being flooded. However, this stilt house was less fortunate. It was flooded during the high tide. Meanwhile, in Lei Yu Mun in Kowloon, the water level rose to almost as high as the platform of stilt houses. Residents built their own barriers to prevent water from entering their homes. In the Western District on Hong Kong Island, there were not only tidal overflows along the shore, but seawater also gushed out of the drains in the streets. The observatory has warned the high tide could last for some time and flooding may still hit some low-lying areas. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
At the airport, the situation is gradually returning to normal now that Nida no longer affects Hong Kong. Hundreds of flights are being rescheduled to help clear the backlog. Adam Chu has that story.
More than 150 inbound and outbound flights were cancelled yesterday as the city braced for the storm. That forced some passengers to spend the night at the airport. This tourist accused the airline of failing to come up with a contingency plan and providing confusing information. The airport authority advised travelers to check the latest flight information online ahead of time. Still, some of them only learned about the cancellations after arriving at the airport. Some were prepared for a long wait. And as Nida no longer posed a threat to Hong Kong, the airport's priority was to clear the backlog of passengers. With hundreds of flights being rescheduled, check-in desks were inundated with passengers keen to catch the first available flight after spending a sleepless night stranded at the airport.
Our flight has been cancelled, so now we have to book another flight. Hopefully we're not here much longer, but the line doesn't look to be getting any shorter.
They let us know that it was cancelled, which was good. When a typhoon comes through, it's obviously really difficult, and everyone is doing the best they can to help everyone.
Both runways will be in operation overnight, and the airport authority says it would increase staff on the ground to help out stranded passengers if necessary. Adam Xu, TVB News.